You didn't find this book by accident. Something inside you is ready to grow, to heal, to rise. This is your space now. A space to rediscover your light and learn how to stay positive, no matter what life throws your way. Let's begin. There are moments when even the brightest light feels like it's fading. You smile for the world, but inside, something is cracking. You tell yourself to stay strong, stay hopeful, stay kind, but some days, the weight feels unbearable. And in those moments, you don't want someone to tell you, just be positive. You want something deeper, real, something that works. Because positivity isn't pretending everything's fine. It's not ignoring pain or running from darkness. It's learning how to breathe through the storm and still believe that the sun will rise. But for most of us, that belief doesn't come easy. We fall, we hurt, we lose. And then we wonder, how do some people keep going? How do they smile not because they're pretending, but because they mean it? The truth is, no one is born positive. No one wakes up every day overflowing with joy and clarity. Even the calmest souls you admire have had their moments, nights of doubt, mornings of despair. But then something changed. They didn't remove the chaos around them. They shifted something within. And that shift, that quiet revolution inside, is what this journey is all about. There was a boy who used to sit on the same park bench every evening. Life hadn't been kind to him. He'd lost his job. His closest friend had betrayed him. His dreams felt like a joke. And yet, people who passed him said there was a softness in his eyes, something strangely peaceful. They didn't know what he had endured, but they felt what he had found. Because somewhere along the way, he had learned that staying positive isn't about avoiding the bad, it's about noticing the good, even when it's hidden in the cracks. That's the first secret. Noticing. Most people miss the tiny things that could shift their whole day. A kind word, a fresh breeze, the way sunlight filters through a curtain. They're too busy looking for big answers. But life whispers in small moments. And if you can learn to notice those whispers, you begin to hear something astonishing. Life isn't always beautiful, but it is always speaking. And yet, there's a trap, a powerful one. We convince ourselves that when life becomes perfect, then we'll be happy. When we get the job, when we find love, when the storm passes. But then the job comes and we want a better one. Love comes and it demands patience. The storm passes and another begins. If you tie your happiness to conditions, you'll spend your life chasing a horizon that keeps moving. There was once a woman who had everything: wealth, beauty, fame. But her nights were filled with silence she couldn't silence. She had thousands of followers, but felt completely alone. She tried yoga, therapy, travel. Nothing worked. And then, one night, she wrote herself a letter, not to complain, not to plan, but just to listen to her own pain without judgment. And in that act, she met someone she hadn't seen in years, herself. The real her, buried under expectations, perfection, and pressure. She didn't fix her life overnight, but that night, she stopped being at war with herself. And that changed everything. Because positivity isn't loud. It doesn't need to shout. It begins quietly, with one powerful decision. I will no longer abandon myself. Not when I'm tired. Not when I fail. Not when others walk away. I will stay with myself through all of it. But that's where it gets hard. The mind doesn't want peace. It wants control. It wants guarantees. It wants to know that if you try, you'll succeed. If you love, you'll be loved back. If you do everything right, nothing will go wrong. But then life doesn't obey. And you begin to lose faith, not just in life, but in yourself. In those moments, your mind will offer you two roads. One says, give up. This is too much. The other says, what if you just held on one more hour? That's it. Not forever. Just one more hour. And you hold. You breathe. You cry if you must. But you stay. And slowly, the storm softens. That's the second secret. You don't need to conquer every day. You just need to stay in it. There's a story of a man who walked every morning in silence. He never carried a phone, never wore headphones. He just walked. Someone asked him why. He said, "Because if I don't walk with my thoughts, they'll start running ahead of me." That's the third truth. Positivity grows in stillness. If your mind is always rushing, scrolling, comparing, reacting, it will forget how to rest. And a restless mind cannot be positive. Not because it's weak, but because it's exhausted. But here's the conflict. The world doesn't reward stillness. It celebrates noise, productivity, hustle, achievement. And when you slow down, the world tells you you're falling behind. But what if behind is where your peace lives? What if the speed is killing your joy? So you begin to choose. Less comparison, more compassion, less scrolling, more sunsets, less proving, more being. And it feels strange at first, like learning to breathe underwater. But then something beautiful begins to grow, a life that feels like yours. You start laughing at things that used to break you. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because you do. You learn to cry without shame and smile without reason. And suddenly, people start asking, "How are you always so calm?" But they don't see the quiet hours, the inner work, the nights you sat with your pain and chose not to numb it. That's the real work. The invisible work of staying positive, not by faking it, but by facing it. And yet, there are days it all falls apart. You'll relapse into old habits. Doubt will creep in. You'll hear that voice again, the one that says, "See, nothing's changed." But here's what you'll know. Falling isn't failure. It's feedback. It's a reminder that healing isn't a straight line. And even in that fall, you're further than you were. Because now, you know how to stand up. Over time, your relationship with yourself becomes unshakable. You stop needing constant validation. You stop fearing solitude. You stop chasing people who can't see your worth. Because you've already seen it, and that sight changes everything. You'll begin to attract peace not because everything is perfect, but because you are. Not perfect as in flawless. Perfect as in whole. As in you're no longer fighting against yourself. And people will feel that. They'll come to you not for answers, but for your presence. Because your energy becomes medicine. And here's the final truth. Staying positive all the time doesn't mean you're happy all the time. It means you trust yourself enough to walk through anything. It means your light isn't at the mercy of the world. It comes from within you. You realize that positivity isn't something you chase. It's something you choose. Again and again. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. So, if you're still listening, if something inside you felt seen, then take this moment to remind yourself, you are not broken. You are not behind. You are becoming. And everything you need to stay positive is already inside you. Now, let's walk this path together. And if you ever forget the way, just return to the quiet where your strength has always lived. There was once a little child who ran outside every time it rained. While others hid under umbrellas and roofs, she danced. Not because she didn't get wet, but because she loved how the rain made her feel alive. Somewhere along the way, that child grows up, learns to be cautious, learns to stay dry, learns to fear the storm. But deep down, she still remembers the joy of dancing without reason. That's what positivity truly is, not an escape from life's storms, but a return to your natural self within them. And yet, it's not easy to return, because as we grow, the world teaches us to armor up. Don't feel too much. Don't hope too much. Don't trust too much. And slowly, we forget how to feel joy without guilt, how to cry without shame, how to rest without apology. But there's a quiet rebellion happening, a shift. A realization spreading across hearts that have carried too much for too long. It's okay to be soft in a hard world. In fact, it's necessary. And so, you start dropping the armor. Not all at once. Piece by piece. You stop faking smiles just to be accepted. You stop chasing things that exhaust you. You stop shrinking yourself to fit someone else's comfort. And something strange happens. You begin to feel lighter. But then comes resistance from others, from your own doubts. The world isn't used to people who are both strong and gentle. It will try to push you back into your old roles. The overachiever, the pleaser, the quiet one, the angry one, the one who never says no. But this time, you know something different. That staying positive doesn't mean pleasing everyone. It means choosing you, even if others don't understand. There's power in saying, I won't be who I was taught to be, I'll be who I am. Still, the hardest part isn't letting go of the world. It's letting go of the voice in your own head, the critic, the doubter, the one that whispers you're not enough. But now you know, that voice isn't truth, it's just an echo, a ghost from old pain. And just because it speaks, doesn't mean you have to listen. You begin to talk back, gently but firmly. I see you. I know where you come from, but I choose to believe in something deeper. And with every choice, you build a new mind. A home within yourself that's warm, forgiving, and strong. Some days, you'll still fall. You'll get tired of trying. And that's okay. Rest. Pause. Sit with the fatigue. But don't quit. Because staying positive isn't about never falling. It's about never leaving yourself behind when you do. There's a practice that helps. It's simple. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what did I love today? What did I learn today? What did I survive today? These 3 questions shift your focus. They remind you that even in a day filled with chaos, there was still growth, still beauty, still strength. You start looking at life differently. Delays become lessons in patience. Setbacks become setups for deeper clarity. You realize the universe doesn't punish, it teaches. And every difficulty is asking, will you close off or will you open wider? And slowly, you stop waiting for life to be easy. You make peace with the mess. You stop needing every chapter to make sense right away. Because now, you trust the author. You are writing this story. And you are allowed to rewrite the parts that no longer feel true. You give yourself permission to heal, not because someone apologized, but because you deserve peace. You let go, not because you're weak, but because carrying pain is heavier than forgiveness. And somewhere in this becoming, you start to feel steady. You become a lighthouse, not swayed by the waves, but guiding through them. Others begin to feel it. They ask what changed. And you smile, not because you have all the answers, but because you no longer need them. You've learned that the questions themselves are enough. And that brings you to the next secret. Gratitude. Not the surface kind. I'm grateful for my car, my house, my phone. The real kind, the kind that whispers, I'm grateful for this breath, for this moment, for this quiet, for this chance to try again. Gratitude rewires your brain. Not instantly, but gently, repeatedly. It turns anxiety into awareness. It turns fear into presence. And the more you practice it, the more you realize your life was never empty. It was just unnoticed. So now, when you walk, you feel the earth beneath you. When you eat, you taste with attention. When you speak, you mean it. When you love, you're there. And this full presence, this awareness, it becomes your source of positivity. Not forced, not fake, just deeply alive. Still, there will be tests. You'll lose people you thought would stay forever. You'll face things you didn't ask for. You'll break in places you didn't know existed. But this time, you won't fall apart, you'll fall inward. Into strength, into wisdom, into a softness that can't be taken from you. Because now, you don't just carry positivity, you are it. You've become the one others look to when they're lost, not because you have all the light, but because you've walked through so much darkness and still choose to shine. There's a kind of joy that doesn't scream. It doesn't need music or celebration. It sits quietly in the corner of your chest, smiling. The kind of joy that says, even now, I'm okay. And that kind of joy is unshakable. Because it isn't built on success, approval, or perfection. It's built on presence, on peace, on the simple truth that you're here, and that is enough. Somewhere in your journey, you stop needing everything to go right. You stop asking the world to be gentle. Instead, you become gentle with yourself. And that changes everything. You begin waking up not to chase, but to receive. Not to impress, but to express. Not to prove, but to belong to yourself. You'll find new meaning in old things. You'll laugh without reason. You'll walk slower, breathe deeper, feel more. And when hard days come, as they always do, you won't run. You'll stay, because you know now, storms pass faster when you stop fighting them. There was a man who once told his therapist, "I don't want to be happy anymore. I just want to be real." And the therapist smiled and said, "Good, because realness is where happiness begins." It's a beautiful paradox. The more you accept your sadness, the more space you make for joy. The more you stop trying to be perfect, the more perfectly life begins to unfold. The more you face what scares you, the less control it has. You've probably spent years searching for answers outside yourself. Books, courses, podcasts, gurus. And maybe they helped. But the greatest teacher was always inside you. The quiet part of you that watches, knows, waits. And now, that part is no longer silent. It speaks. It guides. It protects. It shines. Because you finally gave it space. This is the truth no one tells you. Staying positive is not about having a good life. It's about having a good relationship with life. And life isn't always nice. But it is always honest. Always teaching. Always loving you in its own fierce way. Now, when you're rejected, you smile and say, "This is redirection." When things fall apart, you say, "This is making room." When nothing makes sense, you whisper, "This is transformation." You're not faking optimism. You're choosing it. Again and again. Not because it's easy, but because it's yours. One day, someone will ask you, "How do you stay so grounded, so peaceful?" And you'll remember this journey, not just the words, but the choices. The days you almost gave up. The nights you held your own hand. The mornings you started again. And you'll say, "Because I stopped waiting for life to get easier. I just started loving myself through all of it." That's what staying positive really means. It means being the eye in the storm, not because you control the wind, but because you refuse to be moved by fear. It means looking in the mirror and seeing someone worth showing up for. It means walking into the world with a soft heart and open eyes, knowing full well that you may get hurt, but choosing to stay open anyway. Because when all is said and done, the people who stay positive aren't the lucky ones. They're the courageous ones. The ones who dared to face themselves over and over and still chose love, still chose light, still chose hope. And now you're one of them. Not because life gave you less pain, but because you chose to rise higher. So carry this truth with you always. Your joy is not a luxury, it is a responsibility. A gift you offer not just to yourself, but to the world. Because someone, somewhere, needs your light. And it starts with you right now choosing to shine. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you, not just for listening, but for showing up for yourself. In a world that constantly pulls us toward fear, distraction, and doubt, choosing to stay positive is nothing short of a rebellion. A quiet, beautiful rebellion. One that starts in your mind, flows through your heart, and touches everyone around you. This isn't the end of a book. It's the beginning of a new way of seeing, of living, of being. There will still be hard days, but now you have the tools, the perspective, the inner strength, and most importantly, you have you. So go forward not just with hope, but with conviction. Know that light lives within you. And every time you choose it, despite the noise, the fear, the pain, you make the world a little brighter. Stay soft, stay strong, stay true, and above all, stay positive. You are your own light, and the world is better because you shine.